This is Isabella Guzman, 18 years old, cold, emotionless. When she stepped out of the bathroom, she didn't scream, cry, or flee. She simply stared at her stepfather, the man who had just rushed upstairs after hearing her mother's screams. Inside, her mother, Yunmi Hoi, lay lifeless on the floor, drenched in blood, with 79 stab wounds through her chest and neck. No one could have imagined this. An 18-year-old girl murdering the woman who gave her life. But what's even more chilling is the look in Isabella's eyes at that moment, completely calm, frozen with the coldness of a predator. But she's not the only one. There are other teens, even more brutal, even more heartless. What could make a child kill their own flesh and blood? Is it mental illness, hatred, or something even more terrifying? Brace yourself, because what you're about to hear is not for the faint of heart. One, Carly Gregg, the 14-year-old murderer. Brandon, Mississippi, on an ordinary evening, in a quiet house, just a mother and her daughter. Then, a gunshot shattered the silence. Ashley Smiley, 40 years old, collapsed to the floor. Blood spread across the bedroom. And the one who pulled the trigger was her daughter, 14-year-old Carly Gregg. Just moments earlier, Carly and her mother had had a furious argument. Ashley had discovered her daughter was using drugs and confronted her without hesitation. But she didn't know, just in that split second, the daughter she gave life to had transformed into a cold-blooded killer. After shooting her mother, Carly didn't run. She called a friend over. Not for help, but to gloat. When the friend arrived, Carly led her into the room, opened the door, and said, as if showing off a painting, "I killed my mom." But it didn't stop there. Carly had also planned to kill her stepfather, Heath Smiley. She texted him, pretending like nothing had happened, telling him to come home right away. Heath walked in, unaware that the 14-year-old girl he had cared for was waiting for him, gun in hand. The moment Heath stepped through the door, Carly fired. The bullet tore through his shoulder, but he didn't fall. With survival instincts kicking in, Heath rushed forward, wresting the gun from her and pinning Carly to the floor. By this time, the police had already arrived on the scene. Carly was arrested right there. She didn't cry, didn't show an ounce of remorse, just stared blankly at the officers. At the trial that followed, her defense attorneys tried to argue that Carly had a mental disorder. They claimed she heard voices in her head, that she was depressed and delusional. But no one in the jury bought it. No one believed this was a loss of control. Carly Gregg was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after just 4.5 days of trial. A 14-year-old girl, who should have been in school, laughing and playing like any other child, had destroyed her life with one single pull of the trigger. 2. Isabella Guzman, 79 stab wounds and the mystery of mental illness. This is Isabella Guzman, an 18-year-old girl with long hair and a cold, emotionless face, stepping out of the bathroom. In her hand, a knife. Blood still stains her clothes. Inside, her mother, Yunmi Hoi, lay motionless on the floor, stabbed 79 times. Before this, Isabella had sent an email to her mother with the words, "You'll pay for this." But no one believed she actually intended to kill her. That night, while Yunmi was taking a shower, Isabella grabbed a knife and silently entered the room. No words, no warning signs. She swung the knife and didn't stop until her mother's body went limp. Isabella's stepfather, Brian Hoi, heard the noise. He ran upstairs, banging on the bathroom door, but it was locked. As he tried to open it, Isabella stepped out, calm, indifferent, as if nothing had happened. The police quickly tracked down Isabella. She was arrested the next day, showing no fear or remorse. When standing in court, Isabella denied the charges. She claimed she had schizophrenia, believing the woman she killed wasn't her mother, but an imposter. Psychiatrists concluded that Isabella was truly delusional. She believed things that weren't real, and it was those hallucinations that led to the horrific murder. The court declared Isabella not guilty by reason of insanity, and instead of prison, she was sent to a psychiatric facility in Colorado. But the question remains: was she really mentally ill, or was this just a way to escape punishment? In 2020, Isabella petitioned for release, claiming she had recovered. but the court denied her request, ruling that she was still a danger to society. So what is the truth? Is Isabella Guzman a cold-blooded killer or just a victim of mental illness? The answer remains uncertain. But one thing is for sure, this case will forever be one of the most haunting crimes in American history. 3. Sierra Halseth, the crime of a child and blind love. In 2021, in Las Vegas, a brutal crime shocked the entire community. Sierra Halseth, 16, and her boyfriend Aaron Guerrero, 18, murdered Sierra's father, Daniel Halseth, with 70 stab wounds. This wasn't just a simple murder. The reason these two teenagers killed the only parent who raised them wasn't over a petty argument or some ordinary family conflict. What made them so ruthless? It was blind love, a desperate thirst for freedom, an obsession with living life on their own terms. Sierra's relationship with Aaron had been forbidden by her father. Daniel didn't want his daughter continuing a relationship with an older man who had no future. To Sierra, Daniel was an obstacle, a man who didn't understand her. And with Aaron's support, she decided that the only way to escape her father's control was to kill him, so she could live freely in love with Aaron. The scene inside the Halseth home that night was horrifying. Daniel was stabbed repeatedly, the blades piercing his heart like cuts to the soul of a father. What made the murder even colder and more terrifying was the actions of the two after the crime. Sierra and Aaron felt no remorse, no fear. They even filmed a video of the murder, chatting casually as if it was just another normal event in their lives. After killing her father, Sierra and Aaron fled, thinking they could get away with their crime. But their escape didn't last long. The police quickly picked up their trail and arrested them as they tried to leave Nevada. A video of them joking about the murder was found, clearly showing that this wasn't a crime of passion or a loss of control. Sierra and Aaron were sentenced to life in prison. However, due to Sierra's age, she still has a chance for parole after serving 22 years. Will Sierra change after all this? Or will she remain trapped in the darkness of her past crime? 4. Sophia Koval, the cold-hearted child and the heinous crime. On May 23, 2024, in Florida, Sophia Koval, just 14 years old, committed an unimaginable crime. She beat her grandmother to death with a belt and a walker, common household items, but ones that she used to destroy the life of a loved one. Why? A quarrel. A quarrel that Sophia couldn't control. It all started with a family disagreement. Sophia's 79-year-old grandmother had been trying to help her with life, but that very help made Sophia angry. The young girl chose violence as her solution. Just minutes after beating her grandmother, Sophia calmly called her father, telling him, "Grandma's going to die. I just helped her die." Her words were shocking, cold, and almost unbelievable. And the scariest part was that this child felt no fear, no remorse. She simply acted with cruelty, as if her grandmother's life had no value at all. When the police arrived, they couldn't imagine what had happened in that house. Sophia's grandmother was dead, and this 14-year-old girl was the one who ended her life. After her arrest, Sophia didn't cry, didn't show regret. She simply lowered her head, indifferent, as if nothing had happened. Throughout the trial, she was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 3 years in a maximum security juvenile detention facility, with supervision until she turned 21. If she violated the conditions of her supervision, she could face up to 15 years in prison. Sophia's crime isn't just horrifying because of its brutality, but also because of the coldness of a 14-year-old child. 5. Natasha Wallen Cornett, the Queen of Darkness and the Brutal Massacre. In 1997, a horrific massacre took place in Tennessee, a place where no one would expect to witness such brutality from teenagers. Natasha Cornett, 18, and her friends carried out an attack on the Lillard family, Jehovah's Witnesses, that shook the entire community. This family, including the parents and 2 children, never imagined their ordinary vacation would end in the deaths of 3 family members. Natasha and her group had planned to steal the Lillard family's car to escape Tennessee, but their plan quickly turned into a bloody crime when they decided to kill the family to eliminate all witnesses. The group kidnapped the Lillard family, forced them into their car, and drove them to a secluded area where no one could save them. The parents were shot dead immediately, and the 6-year-old daughter didn't escape her tragic fate. The 2-year-old son survived but suffered severe injuries. The boy was left blind for life due to the severity of his wounds. After the crime, The group left the Lillard family's bodies by the roadside and stole their car to flee the scene. But their escape didn't last long. The police quickly picked up their trail and arrested them as they tried to leave the state. A video of them joking about the murder was found, proving that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment action. Although Natasha didn't personally kill anyone, she was the mastermind behind the massacre, leading her friends in one of the worst crimes in American history. At the trial, Natasha showed no remorse. She declared herself the Queen of Darkness and claimed to be a follower of Satan, believing it would bring her respect and power. But this defense could not replace the truth. This group of teenagers murdered 3 innocent people. Natasha was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without parole, with no possibility of a reduced sentence. Her brutal actions could never be justified, and this case will forever be one of the most chilling crimes in history. 6. Tess Damm, the 15-year-old girl and the brutal murder. In 2007, Tess Damm, just 15 years old, committed an act no one could have imagined. She convinced her boyfriend, Brian Grove, to murder her own mother, Linda Damm, with 18 stab wounds. A child, only 15, but capable of planning to kill her own mother, a crime unimaginable. The reason behind this murder wasn't just a simple argument between mother and daughter. Tess felt pressure. She felt controlled by her mother. Linda, an alcoholic mother, was difficult to live with, and Tess could no longer stand it. She felt trapped in a life she didn't want. Tess convinced Brian to kill her mother, hoping that after Linda's death, she would be free to live without her mother's supervision. That day, Linda was stabbed repeatedly, 18 times. After the murder, Tess and Brian felt no remorse or fear. They tried to dispose of the body, but their efforts failed. They lived in the house with Linda's body in a closet, as though nothing had happened. The crime was only discovered when the smell of decay from Linda's body prompted a friend of Tess to call the police. When the police arrived at the scene, they found Linda's body and immediately arrested Tess and Brian. Tess was sentenced to 23 years in prison, but only 10 years later, she was granted parole in 2020. Although she was released, Tess still faces the big question: has she truly changed after everything she's done? 7. Scarlett Jenkinson, obsession with death and the horrifying crime. In 2023, in the UK, Scarlett Jenkinson, 15, and her boyfriend Eddie Ratcliffe, 15, committed a murder that sent shockwaves through the community. Their victim, Brianna Gay, 16, was a young girl with a bright future ahead of her. But all that promise ended in the brutal death that took place in Colchester Linear Park. Scarlett had become obsessed with Brianna. She didn't just see Brianna as a friend or family member, she saw her as something that belonged to her. This possessiveness slowly turned into an unhealthy obsession, leading Scarlett to believe Brianna had to belong to her, no one else. For a long time, Scarlett harbored hatred and jealousy toward Brianna. These vague feelings eventually turned into a ruthless decision. She wanted Brianna to be hers forever, and the only way to do that was to kill her. On that day, Scarlett and Eddie lured Brianna to Colchester Linear Park. When Brianna had no reason to suspect anything, they struck, stabbing her 28 times. It wasn't just a single strike, but a series of continuous stabs, driving the victim to death in agony and despair. The knife wounds severed any chance of survival for Brianna, and this act lasted only a few minutes. But to Scarlett and Eddie, it was as if it were just a game. After the crime, they remained unfazed, joking, as if no life had been taken. When the police arrested them, there was no fear or remorse in either of their eyes. Scarlett was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 22 years, while Eddie received a 20-year sentence. Was it just a twisted obsession that led these two teens to take a friend's life? Or are Scarlett and Eddie cold-blooded criminals, showing no remorse for their brutal murder? 8. Jordan Jobson, a life of failure and a deadly act. In 2007, in the UK, Jordan Jobson, just 15 years old, in a drunken and uncontrolled state, fatally stabbed 18-year-old Samantha Magin during an unnecessary altercation. This wasn't a premeditated murder, but an act reflecting the carelessness and thoughtlessness of a teenage girl, influenced by the people around her and negative elements in her life. Jordan was a young girl, still immature and lacking emotional control. During a fight, while intoxicated, she lost control and grabbed a knife, stabbing Samantha, a friend with no conflict between them. Just one moment of thoughtlessness, and Samantha lost her life, while Jordan had to face the irreversible consequences. At first, Jordan didn't fully grasp the severity of her actions. She felt panicked but didn't immediately feel remorse. The police quickly arrested Jordan and brought her to trial. During the trial, Jordan was sentenced to 15 years in prison. But the change didn't end there. After serving some time, her sentence was reduced to just 11 years, and she was released in 2020. However, her freedom didn't last long. Just 6 months later, Jordan reoffended and was arrested again, leaving many to question, did Jordan truly learn from her mistake? Or is she just a teenager unable to change, continuing to make the same mistakes? With a murder resulting from a loss of control and thoughtlessness. 9. Charlie Ely, ruthless deception and a life lost. In 2011, in Florida, Charlie Ely, 18, along with her friends, carried out a murder plot that no one could have imagined. Seth Jackson, 15, a boy too young to understand the cost of trust, was lured to Charlie's house. There, he faced a brutal death and betrayal from those he never thought would harm him. Seth had no idea that this trip would be his last. Charlie and her friends had meticulously planned to lure Seth to her house. When Seth arrived, he couldn't have known he was stepping into a deadly trap, where the people he trusted most were plotting to destroy his life. Seth was brutally beaten, then shot, and finally, his body was set on fire. A death so unimaginable, not just a murder, but a senseless brutality. Seth, a 15-year-old boy, lost his life because of the malice of those he trusted. After the crime, Charlie and her group showed no fear. They continued on with their lives as if nothing had happened, and Seth's body was incinerated, leaving almost no evidence of the crime. However, their calm demeanor didn't last long. The police investigated, gathered evidence, and arrested the group. During the trial, Charlie claimed she was coerced into participating in the murder, but the court rejected this defense. She was sentenced to life in prison, with no chance of a reduced sentence. The story of Charlie and her friends serves as a warning about the deception, betrayal, and the criminal actions teenagers can commit when led into making wrong decisions. In 2020, Charlie's sentence was overturned, and she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. After serving 10 years in prison, she was released. 10. Cassandra Bjorge, cold-blooded crime and a sick love. In 2017, Cassandra Bjorge, 17, and her boyfriend Johnny Ryder, 19, committed a crime that left everyone horrified. They murdered Cassandra's grandparents with a baseball bat and a knife, an act so brutal and inhuman, it's almost impossible to comprehend. But behind this murder lies a story of obsessive love and the rage of a teenager. Cassandra, just 17, had planned to kill her grandparents with Johnny. How could a child do such a thing? What could make a young girl take the lives of her beloved family members? Behind this act was a twisted, unhealthy love and the absence of family affection. Cassandra and Johnny didn't just kill, they turned the crime into a cold-blooded game. After murdering her grandparents, they threw a party at their house, while the bodies of the victims lay in the same space. There was no remorse, no guilt, they acted as if their brutal actions meant nothing. Neighbors and friends of Cassandra were shocked when they learned the truth. No one ever imagined the girl they knew could be so heartless, murdering the very family members who cared for her, all for an obscure reason. Cassandra and Johnny's relationship wasn't a normal love, it was a disturbing, crazy obsession. Cassandra was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 60 years. A 17-year-old girl, who should have been living in the warmth of her family's love, chose a path that destroyed not only her life but also the lives of her loved ones. 11. Franecha Torres, cold-blooded crime and unjustifiable cruelty. In 2018, Franecha Torres, 17, along with her accomplices, orchestrated a brutal murder that shocked the public. They lured an innocent man to a remote area with the intent to rob and kill him. What started as an ordinary meeting quickly turned into a full-fledged criminal act. The story began when Franecha and her group tricked the victim, an innocent man, into coming to a secluded area, thinking he was about to engage in a normal transaction. But once he arrived, Franecha and her accomplices attacked, robbed him, and ultimately killed him. Although the murder was carefully planned, the criminals failed to anticipate one thing: the discovery by a group of children. A group of children playing near the remote area found the victim's body, which led to the quick unraveling of the case. The police swiftly investigated and uncovered that Franecha Torres and her accomplices had planned to kill and rob the man. The case was not only shocking because of its brutality, but also because the perpetrators were young teenagers, not yet adults. Franecha was arrested and charged with murder, assault, and armed robbery. When questioned, she showed no remorse, maintaining a cold indifference to the victim's death. As the details of the case were revealed, the community and authorities were forced to confront a big question: how could a child be so cruel? However, to this day, Franecha Torres' official sentence is still unclear. This has caused unrest in the public, as the case leaves many unanswered questions. Did this girl truly understand the extent of her cruelty? These crime stories leave indelible marks, serving as a reminder of the tragedies that can occur when people lose their way. From children once loved, but who became cold-blooded killers. Brutal acts and poor decisions took the lives of innocent people, and the lives of the perpetrators veered into a dark and twisted path. But what is most chilling is that these criminals are still very young. They aren't seasoned offenders, they are just children who lost their way, pulled into criminal acts by external factors. How can a child commit such a crime? How can a life that hasn't even begun yet end up in prison, in the darkness of guilt? And the biggest question remains: can children like this be saved? Can they feel remorse, make amends, or will they become part of an endless cycle of crime? We can't answer that right away, but these stories serve as a warning, a reminder of the consequences of emotional neglect, ignorance, and hasty decisions. Always remember, one wrong decision can ruin an entire life, and sometimes, the criminals are not who we expect. Thank you for watching the video. If you think these stories should be shared, don't hesitate to like and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with more stories. See you in the next video.